Okay, go ahead.
All right, great, class. I told you I was going to pick up on making sure we understood the most important concept from the PPC, and that is the opportunity cost to trade off. If, and it's a big if, we've received our maximum efficiency, if we've achieved it, and we've got full employment, we're going to be at some point on the horizon of that production possibility curve. And I explained in the last segment the trade-off, or the difference between points 1 and 2 and 3. And I'm not even going to call this beer and pizza anymore. Let's just call it good A and good B. Whatever, and you want to use your own imagination, but keep it clean. Good A and good B will work for you. At point 1, we know that there's a small quantity of good B. Let's call it 100 units. And I'm just making some numbers up here. But at point 1, there's a large quantity of good A. Let's call it 500 units. Let's contrast that to point 2, which is a larger quantity of B. Let's call it 200 units. And I'm doing that intentionally. The horizontal and vertical axis, you don't know what the scales are, how the units are measured. Are it individual units? Is it cases? Is it a truckload? So that's why I want different scales here. And point 2 also has a small quantity of good A. Let's call it 50 units. Okay? So if we're at point 1, we're producing 100 units of good B, and we're producing 500 units of good A. But let's say for some reason, again, in the supply and demand chapter, we'll determine how the mechanics of this work, that we make a decision as a society to move from point 1 to point 2. What do we give up? What do we sacrifice to do that? Because the curve itself, if we remember, this was called the maximum. We can't achieve any more than that curve. So to move from point 1 to increase our production of good B, moving to point 2, what does society give up? And what we give up has to be measured on the opposite axis. We were at 500 units, and so we're going to drop down to 50 units. So our opportunity cost to go from point 1 to point 2 is 450 units. That's what we give up. That's what we sacrifice. And that is called our opportunity cost. Is it worth it to us? Well, we gave up 450 units to only gain 100 units of B. Is that worth it to us? Again, we don't know what these scales are, do we? So this could be truckloads, or that could be individual units. But what happens, let's put some actual names to these goods. Let's call good A Brussels sprouts and good B pizza. I know I'd be willing to give up 450 units of Brussels sprouts, however they were measured, to get either pizza or double stuffed Oreo cookies, right? So to move from point 1 to point 2, we have an opportunity cost of 450 units. Is it worth it? Depends on our taste and preferences. Now, just to make sure you can understand the opportunity cost principle, let's say we're going to go back from point 2 to point 1. What's our opportunity cost now? What do we sacrifice now to move back from point 2 to point 1? Well, we were producing 200 units of B, and now we're only going to produce 100 units. So to move back, our opportunity cost is 100 units. Okay? So the opportunity cost is always measured by what you give up, what you sacrifice. So what becomes a smaller number is your opportunity cost. I hope that helps. On the next segment, we're going to explain, maybe even though right now, today, we're limited by this amount. This is our maximum horizon. Can we get more or even less? We don't want less, because remember, our number one goal is to have more, because we're dealing with scarcity. So let's see what we can do to shift that curve, that production possibility curve, to a new horizon that allows us for greater potential tomorrow as opposed to today. Thanks. Look forward to having you back.